Welcome back, Richard. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. We are well into November, and we are as promised last week, we are going to continue our conversation about the upcoming holidays.
Right. And you can feel them coming.
Yeah. Well,
One
and
of the ways you
there's a
feel
big
them,
cold front coming towards Florida. I just saw that news this morning,
I
and
heard
so
about that.
some
What's that?
record lows coming
Really?
up. Yeah.
In November?
Who knows what that means, but yeah,
What is that, next week?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be good.
Well,
It'll feel like
getting
the
ready for the
holidays.
getting into the holiday spirit. One of the ways we know it's holiday time is all these announcements about Black Friday, right?
Yeah. Black
It's one of
Friday,
those
early Black Friday, super
early,
early Black Friday. Get a head start on Black Friday, all the different
right?
advertisings.
It's one of those it's not a national holiday yet, but
Right.
it's one of those observances
Yeah.
as we call them. Yeah, Black Friday's become a big deal, and Cyber Monday, right?
Yes. Yep.
But so we want to help people get ready for the holidays because, as we said last week, 2025 could be unique in a lot of ways, and I'm sure I speak for all of us. How's that? Um, that we're a little more stressed this year than usual,
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah,
And as everybody knows, holidays add additional stress. So we want to
absolutely.
start getting ready for that.
Yeah, and there's a few reasons why they're so stressful.
Right.
We go through so much of the year really working hard to create some routine, some kind of
Mhm.
predictability in our life.
Right.
We typically do the same things most days. Most
Mhm.
Mondays look pretty much like every other Monday, and so on. But
Mhm.
during this time of the year, things change because there are a lot more activities. There are a lot more deadlines.
Right.
Not only do we have the deadlines from the holidays, but we also have, it's the end of the year. And so that introduces other deadlines from,
Mhm.
work-related perspectives and things like that. So,
Right.
so there's a number of reasons why they're so stressful.
Right. Yeah, first of all, there are too many activities.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have children, you have end of the all the activities at school, you have programs, end of year things, there's music, there's plays. So you're cramming a lot into a very short time period.
Right.
And then you have deadlines. These things do have dates. Thanksgiving occurs on this day. Like it
Hmm.
or not, you better be ready.
Right.
And Christmas Eve is here, and Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. And all of these things have deadlines that are imposed on us, and we feel the pressure,
Right.
and we're not always ready. Um, we have expectations. You pick up any magazine, like Southern Living or Martha Stewart or Better Homes and Gardens, and you see these rooms that are decorated and tables that are decorated. There's this expectation that you're going to get it right. You're going to get everything right all the time, and
Right.
it's a lot of pressure.
Right. And th those are expectations that we feel are imposed upon us from others, and as well as those expectations that we impose upon ourselves.
Right.
And those expectations really permeate so much of everything we do because
Mhm.
it affects the number of activities that we do. It affects how we're going to deal with the deadlines. You know, a
Mhm.
lot of people, we hear people often talking about, the perfectionism. I want to have the perfect holiday. I want to have the perfect Christmas or the perfect Thanksgiving dinner. And that seeking of perfectionism, again, setting an expectation that's very high. The idea of perfectionism is just that alone is stressful.
Mhm.
It's hard to even think about perfectionism in anything, much less in a time like this where there's so many things going on.
Right. And you look at a picture, this is what I want my table to look like.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably not going to,
Right.
because that was set up by some professional who had an unlimited budget, and it was a photo shoot, so everything was
Right.
varnished and shined up and everything. Your
You
your
took
table's
multiple
not going to look like
pictures. remember
I'm
that there
sorry.
were lots of pictures that they took. And so this isn't just like one little snapshot. Oh, we spontaneous, you know.
Yeah, I can do that. I can make my table look like that.
Yeah, it
No.
makes me think of those where we used to talk, we've talked about before about, people doing selfies and like
Yeah.
they take the selfie to make it look as though it's just like, oh, look, we're never mind the fact that there's like 15 different pictures that were taken and the specific one was chosen to look a
Right.
particular way.
Yeah, the perfect pose, perfect
Yeah,
shot, So yes, we want everything to be perfect, like Martha Stewart perfect. And then you mentioned first is the disruption of your routines.
right,
So you're sleeping differently, you're eating differently, you're on a different routine. The holidays impose a new schedule on you. So it's disrupting the normal and then adding to it. So
right.
so you're always dealing with disrupting what you usually do and adding layers of stress to it.
Absolutely.
So, and the causes, as you can see, are sort of baked into the why are they so stressful? One is financial pressure.
Right. Yeah.
One,
There's
the
a
very
lot of financial pressure. When we've talked for years, again, we every year we start the holiday season with a conversation about these types of things.
Mhm,
And as you've said before, this year is especially important because there's some concern that this year is going to be especially difficult for a
mhm,
lot of people. And when it comes to financial pressures, again, sometimes these are self-imposed pressures, but it's this idea that we have to spend all this money, we have to have all of these things, whether it's a
mhm,
lot of gifts or it's a lot of decorations or whatever, and we start to stretch ourselves so thin
mhm.
financially
Yeah.
that it's a pressure that we're feeling not only at the time, but then
Mhm.
we're going to feel it well into the new year as
Right.
we're paying off things and trying to catch
Mhm.
up.
Yeah. I think of financial pressures like the Las Vegas view of the holiday. If you go to Las Vegas, you have to say, okay, I have $1,000 that if I lose it, it's not going to matter. Okay.
Yeah,
You don't go with your mortgage and your car, you don't bet, you
yeah,
don't borrow money or bet. You decide how much can I afford to lose.
right.
Same with the holidays. How much can you afford to spend? I have 2,000, you can sit down and say, I have $1,000.
Hmm.
I can buy whatever I want within that $1,000 limit, but I can't spend any more.
Right,
Otherwise, I don't have to borrow money from somebody, a
right,
bank or a relative or something. So decide how much you can spend and then enjoy buying everything you can within that budget. Okay,
right.
don't just say, well, I want these things, and you put it on a credit card.
Right.
You
Yeah,
spend
no,
this year.
absolutely. And we're kind of jumping ahead to ways to manage this, but my goodness, if you stopped right now and you guys you sat, whether it's you by yourself or you and your partner, whoever, you sit down and you decide who are we purchasing for?
Right, right.
Who are we going to get gifts for?
Mhm.
List them out and then look at your budget and decide how much you're going to spend for each person. That can save you significant stress in the
Right.
future,
Mhm.
as you move through the next few weeks, if you
Mhm.
have all of that already outlined.
Right,
If you just wing it, you know, you're going to have to deal then with all the stress that comes with just winging it because you
right,
don't know, and you're going to end up spending more than you
right.
intend to.
Right. And time is like money. You
Right?
only have so much, okay?
Right?
And if you're working full time or even close to full time, keep that in mind that another cause is time. There's almost never enough time to do everything. And you
Right.
know that going into it. So be careful with your time as you're careful with your money.
Right.
And one of my favorites that we're going to talk a lot about this year, more than we have in the past,
Right.
are the challenges that being with family members bring. And
Yeah.
and you know that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that there are challenges um, that being
Yeah.
around family members are going to create. And
Well,
so get ready early.
yeah, because and again, this is one of the reasons that we think that this year is going to be especially difficult is
Mhm.
that if you have family members who have different perspectives than you, especially different political or world views than you,
Right.
um, we know that the current climate, the current state of things right now is that those things are dividing us. What's happening in Washington, D.C., what's happening in our state capitals, and all of those things are dividing us more so now than it feels more so now than ever before.
Oh, yeah, I think
Um,
so. Hmm.
and so when you know that you're going to go somewhere and you're going to be with family who have very different views than you, and if you or that other family member is the type of person who can't avoid talking about it, those issues are going to be brought up. Just the stress from that is can be overwhelming.
Right.
And there's just
And there
challenges that are going to happen.
and we all have family members who have different views than we do
Right.
on religion, on politics, on gender identity. These issues are likely to come up, and
Mhm.
you need to prepare now. Can
Right.
you tolerate that or not? And so we'll talk about that later. When toward the end of the podcast, we'll talk about what we can do about these things.
Hmm.
We mentioned high expectations earlier. So we have financial pressure, time pressure, family pressure. Okay,
Hmm.
those are the three biggies. All right. Now, these stressors can affect we always say, everybody always said, well, they can affect your mental health. What do we mean by they're going to affect your mental health? What happens? Well,
Yeah.
the first two are obvious. You're going to be more anxious.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to affect it's going to make you more anxious. It's going to affect your mood. It could increase
mhm,
depression.
right.
Part of that is just the nature of the holidays, the
Mhm,
holiday season, the time of year, because you know, we typically see patients here in the office until 5:30, somewhere around there. And I've mentioned before, one of my evening activities is when I finish with patients, I pack up and I go home and then I get ready and I go for a jog.
mhm.
Um, by the time I finish my 30-minute jog, so by 6:30, it's dark.
Yeah, right, right. Hmm.
I was talking to a kid about this yesterday, and he was complaining that he doesn't have things to look forward to. There's nothing for him to do. And we're talking about how difficult it is this time of year because it's dark so early,
Right, right,
and so there's no time to be out in the sunshine. And so there's like this whole concept of like seasonal affective disorder,
right,
where we know that the increased amount of darkness um, increases stress. It
mhm,
increases depressive symptoms,
right.
and this is it's ironic and unfortunate that it coincides at the same time that all this other stress is coming up from the holidays.
Mhm. Yeah, everybody's still recovering from the time change.
Right,
I have never heard people talk about the cha time change as I have this year.
right,
It seems, and that's what I'm saying. That's what we want to say to people is this year's going to be different.
yeah,
The, the time change has disrupted everybody's life in ways that I have never heard about before.
right,
And I
yeah,
think that's symptomatic of, I think 2025 is a little bit different.
right.
So you know that you're going to have some anxiety. You know that you're going to have some mood, some changes in mood. It's going to affect your sleep.
Absolutely. And again, along with what you were just saying, I don't remember in the past people
Hmm.
talking so much about sleep problems.
Right.
Um, they're just having more difficulty falling asleep, more difficulty staying asleep. I know that I'm experiencing some of that. There were a
Right.
few times this week that I was up, I usually get up early anyways, but I was up before 3 o'clock a few
Right.
times this
Hmm.
week and found myself here at the office by 3 o'clock
Right.
in the morning,
Right.
um, working. There's lots of things that need to get done, but
Right.
it's like, it catches up with you and you have to be very mindful about what you're doing with your sleep schedule.
That's right. And so you have some disrupted sleep at the busiest, most anxiety
Mhm.
producing time of the year.
Right.
So be very, very careful about sleep. And you're going to be irritable. So you have
Because of
anxiety,
all those other
depression,
things.
and irritability. You're supposed to be enjoying yourself, but you're more irritable.
Right.
We are more irritable anyway
Hmm.
this year. People are very angry about politics. They're very angry about the shutdown. Very angry. If you're traveling this weekend, your flight could be canceled. 10%
Right.
of flights are going to be canceled.
Right.
Um, so there's, and we're not through hurricane season yet. We have 3 more weeks to go. hoping
Yeah.
that we don't get a major hurricane.
It was just what, a
So
week or two ago that the largest hurricane to ever hit Jamaica just
devastated.
devastated that
Yeah,
that island. It's unbelievable.
yeah.
Now we were fortunate that it didn't
This,
take the
mhm,
turn and hit Florida,
mhm,
but my goodness, the people and those of you who have family members that live in Jamaica, that our heart goes out to just the devastation of the images and everything are just horrible.
and they've been
Um,
experiencing hurricanes for hundreds of thousands
yeah,
of years. This is the biggest one ever. Okay.
right.
But again, that's a very touchy topic. Not allowed to talk about climate change, but it's climate change that's causing it. But so there's all these issues
Hmm.
that we're very, very anxious about anyway.
Right,
And so they make you irritable at a time when you're supposed to be joyous. Okay.
right.
And then the last thing are the somatic complaints, headaches,
Hmm.
stomach aches, and joint pain.
Right.
You're going if you have any joint pain at all, it's pretty likely it's going to be worse in the next 6 weeks.
Right.
Okay.
And
Um,
so remember that, stress attacks the immune system.
right.
And for that reason, you get those somatic complaints, you get those joint pains and that those gastrointestinal issues and things like that. Because, and as we have a compromised immune system, we are more likely and more prone to get sick and at the
Right.
time when temperature's changing and
Right.
influenza and other health related issues, acute illnesses, COVID and flu and colds come up. So, all of these things then again compound our stress. It makes it even more stressful. There's nothing worse than having a whole bunch of things on your schedule to do, and then you
Mhm.
get a cold.
Right.
Or
Right.
the kids get a cold, and now it's like, oh, now we can't go here, we can't go do this, we can't do that, and that just increases the stress for everybody.
That's right. You have this confluence of factors all mitigating against you. They're all working against you. Time and pressure and money and all these things at a time of the year when you tend to get more frequent colds and flus anyway. So everything is conspiring against you. So you need a plan.
Hmm.
As you approach the holidays, and it's still early enough.
Yeah.
It's only we're getting into the second week of November, so you have a little bit of time. Uh, in Florida, we have a hurricane plan. Okay,
Hmm.
we're told every year before the beginning of hurricanes, make sure you have everything ready to go, so that when the hurricane hits, if you lose power, you have
Right.
your hurricane readiness kit. Okay, so we advocate a holiday readiness kit.
Right.
So you need a plan to manage all this stress. All right. So first of all, what do you need to consider? Number one, what are your triggers?
Yeah.
What are
Absolutely.
is it going to be a cousin who disagrees with you politically? What are your triggers? My trigger is the turkey.
Hmm.
Okay. My entire family knows that a turkey and I will never occupy the same space. It just is a horrible. I can cook any cuisine in the world, Thai, Indian, Italian. The one meal I don't like to do is Thanksgiving. So if that's my stressor, that's my
Hmm.
trigger,
Yeah.
I don't do it.
Absolutely.
I mean, you want to do a turkey? Go ahead. This man is never going to do another turkey.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got too many turkey failures in my past, right?
Right. No, so, but if you recognize what the trigger is, whether it's a particular family member, a particular activity, a particular event,
Right.
whatever it is, if you recognize what the trigger is, then you can either A, avoid that trigger,
Hmm.
or B, prepare for that trigger.
Right.
Things are, triggers are a lot less triggering, go figure.
Hmm.
Things are a lot less triggering if you prepare for it. If you
Right.
know that it's going to happen, you say,
Right.
okay, I know that this cousin is going to be there, this uncle or aunt is going to be there, and that they're going to talk about these things. So I'm going to prepare for it by having a plan for escape. I know how I'm going to get away from it if it starts.
Right.
Um, that alone can relieve a tremendous amount of stress.
You know, we've been talking about this because we do have one family member who has very different views than we do and is not reluctant to express her views all over the table if she feels like it.
Right,
So we're beginning to prepare now. Say, okay, she's going to say these things.
right,
Now, you just have to laugh about it or walk out of the room or something. You can't engage with her.
Right.
That's okay. So what are your triggers and and don't expose yourself. Second, what's really important to you?
And Richard, again, I think this is another, I don't want to say this is the most important thing because I think all of these things are important,
Hmm.
but what is important to you? Is it important to you that you attend the family get-togethers? Is that
Right.
important?
Hmm.
Okay, that's great. Is it important for you to focus primarily on your immediate family and not as much on your extended family? Then
Right.
that's good to know. Is it
Yeah.
important that you do certain things, you follow certain holiday traditions
Hmm.
and things like that, then that's important. But you have to figure out what's important because there has to be some things that are more important than other things. You
Right.
have to have some things that can get pushed down the list,
Right.
or else if everything is of equal importance and everything is at the top of the list, again, you're in that situation where you're going to be so stressed and overwhelmed because you're extending yourself too far.
That's right. You have to decide if you want your family to do something, if you want private time with your family or your spouse or your children, or your parents. Decide what's important and let go of what isn't. You can't do everything. So decide what's important to you, what will make your holidays rich and enjoyable, and then let go of what isn't important and build your holiday around what is important.
Right. Because that's another one thing down a little bit further down on the list is you have to be okay to say no. You
Yeah,
know, when you know what's important and you know what your triggers are, it's going to be easier to say no to those things that you don't want to do or shouldn't be doing or things that are going to cause you more problems. So
right.
it's okay to say no. It's okay to say that you're not available for some events, and especially if they're things that are just going to make things more difficult for you.
Hmm. And within that, you've structured everything, you think you have it all worked out. You have to remain a little bit flexible
Right.
because things may not work out exactly as you had planned.
Right.
Maybe there's somebody at the party that you weren't expecting, or the people you were expecting are not there. And so within your plan, you have to maintain some flexibility because things may change. In
Right.
football, they call it an audible. The
Right.
quarterback goes up and changes the play
Right.
because he sees something different. So you might have to call an audible
Right.
sometime during the holiday season. And
Well,
you
and
have to be able to
again,
do that,
again, as we talked about a minute ago, because of stress, somebody can get sick. And
right?
so if if a kid gets sick, that changes everything,
Right.
you
That's
know?
right.
Because now when a kid's sick, now you don't may not want to be around your grandparents, or you may not want to be around people who are, have health problems or immune compromised for some reason or something like that. So, you have to be flexible enough to be okay, okay, well, this isn't going to work out. So you also have to be able to admit to your family when you can't do some things.
Right.
I can't be there for that. I can't, meet this expectation that you're asking of me. I can't
Mhm.
do these things
Right.
because there's just not time or there's just not, I just don't have the availability or I just simply can't. It's
Right.
okay to
Yeah.
admit that.
Yeah. These last two they're the last two things to in your plan are sort of the Superman, Superwoman things. Number one is what you say. Look, folks, I can't cook this year. Something came, whatever it is, I
Mhm.
can't cook, or I can't stay for the whole night, or I can't be there this day, but I can be there this
Right.
day. Admit to family when you can't.
Mhm.
Everybody's going to give you grace, okay? And it's better to admit than to go and be stressed and ruin your day and everybody else's day. And the
Mhm.
other thing is, on the other side of that is, let other people know when you need to have time with them.
Right.
If I want to spend time with my son, say, hey, look, can we carve out a couple of hours, just go golfing? Let's go for a walk. I'd really like to spend some extra time with you.
Right.
See, I'll let others know when you need time with them. You
Right.
don't have to be Superman. You don't have to be Superwoman.
Yeah, because and then that other perspective is that he can say, Dad, I would really like to, but I don't have time this week, but maybe we can do it next week. Or,
Right.
I don't really have a couple of hours to go play golf, but maybe we can have, lunch. I can swing by your office and have lunch with, there you can work things out. But when both sides are being honest about some of those needs,
Hmm.
It's so much easier to work through and find a solution than it is if, you know, if your son really doesn't have time, but he
Hmm.
says, well, dad wants this, so dad's expecting this, so I'm gonna do it anyways. That's going to create just more problems for him because now he's going to have more stress. So
Mhm.
you got to be
Yeah,
honest
I
about
might not think about doing something with somebody, but if somebody called and said, "Hey, man, I really need to sit down. Can I have a couple of hours over
yeah,
Thanksgiving?" Absolutely. There would be
yeah,
no question. If somebody asked, absolutely. So remember that when you ask, the other person's probably going to say the same thing. Say,
mhm,
absolutely, whatever you need. Okay.
yeah,
But you have to admit it. Okay.
right, yeah. So some additional things. Make sure that you take some
Oh.
time for self-care. We always talk about the three big things: sleep, exercise, diet.
Mhm.
But make sure that you take some time for self-care, whether it's some meditation, just some quiet time alone, quiet time with your partner or with your immediate family, just to kind of decompress and find some ways to relieve some of that pressure and stress and everything.
Right.
But just take some time for self-care. It's so important.
Right. And manage your expectations. And we say
Absolutely.
that every year. Don't set the bar so high that you're
Mhm.
disappointed if you can't achieve it. What do they say? Underachieve. I don't know. Can't remember it now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
manage your expectations
Right.
and be very careful with what you food and alcohol, food and drink.
I just read an article. Well, I saw the title of an article and I haven't read it because just came out this morning and I forgot that we had this point on here or else I would have read it. Where it was talking about, if you drinking too much, we know that there's lots of consequences to it, but there's even more concern now coming out about, even just having, two or three drinks on a regular basis, significantly increases risk for heart-related issues
Right.
and, certainly mood-related issues. And so, yeah, you got to be really mindful about food and drink and everything during this time of year.
We all know that food can create inflammation. Inflammation makes you feel bad, but with
Yeah.
alcohol, we know that binge drinking is the worst kind of drinking.
Right.
That's what causes the most trouble. But also, if you're over a certain age and you're drinking every day, your your
Yeah.
your liver isn't going to handle all that alcohol,
Right.
and you're going to be drunk a lot of every day.
Yeah.
You're going to be drunk hours because your liver, if you're over 50 or 60 years old, you just don't clear out the alcohol the way you
Yeah.
used to. Everybody knows that.
Right.
People say, I used to drink when I was in my 20s. Well, you're not in your 20s
Right.
anymore. So be very careful of food and drink.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And certainly as you're going through all these things, if you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and maybe even if you're trying some of these things and it's just not helping that much, talk to a professional.
Right.
Sometimes just sitting down and unloading some of that.
Mhm.
The professional may not offer much more than what we're saying here, but just expressing it, just having somebody that you can talk to and you know that it's going to stay between the two of you and you know that it's not going to hurt anybody's feelings, whatever you say, however you say it. Sometimes just doing that can help tremendously just to get it
Right.
off of your chest.
Right.
So get professional help if you need it.
Right.
So
So next week we're going to continue talking about this as the holidays approach. I think we'll do one next week, depending. There's some other things we want to talk about, but one of these podcasts we want to talk about managing if you have a family member with special needs, and
mhm,
particularly if you're dealing with parents who are beginning the early stages of dementia or they're having
mhm,
memory problems and they're getting it's a little more challenging dealing with that. And many of us are dealing with that now.
right,
Many of us are dealing with parents who are at that age. So you're going to have to adjust and be flexible and prepare a little bit differently if you have an elderly parent or a relative who's having some memory problems. You want your elderly family members to be there, but it brings a different it's another set of challenges that you need to prepare for.
right,
And we'll
absolutely.
talk
So
about that.
we'll
Okay.
focus on that in the next podcast, next week with the
Okay.
podcast. So, all right. Well, until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.